Boy, Jerome Powell knows now what we all know and what we're all seeing and realizing here on Main Street, and that is that inflation remains stubbornly high, and he's still got a lot of work to do as long as there's no supply-side economics from the administration. And he made these remarks yesterday to the Economic Club of New York. Let's welcome on and say hi to our friend, Steve Moore. Of course, he worked for President Trump as an economic advisor, and he's now doing absolutely outstanding work with FreedomWorks, where he is a senior economic contributor, and he's now broadcasting on 100,000 watts at 95.7 FM. You are crystal clear, Steve. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. Great to be with you. And look, I'm a little angry this morning. I see what's going on in the world, and these are all unforced errors in large part by this administration. You've got how many times have we talked about on your show in the last, year and a half, the fact that this preposterous energy policy by Joe Biden, which was a declaration of war against American energy, was, how many times have I said it's not just bad for our economy, which obviously it is. We'd have $100 billion more a year in GDP if we just stuck with the Trump, drilling policies, but it's a national security crisis. And we have put money into the hands. The United States government has effectively put money into the hands of the terrorists and of Putin by not producing more oil here. And, Iran now has $50 billion more money than they would have if we had stuck with the Trump drilling policies. How many rockets can you purchase with $50 billion?
Yeah, that is so true. It's upwards of 80 billion, right? I've seen numbers from 50 to 80.
I've been saying 50 billion, and people say I'm lowballing the number. My buddy Larry Kudlow and I had dinner last night, and he was saying, "Why do you keep saying it's 50 billion? It's 80 billion." I'm being conservative here.
Yeah.
It might be a higher number than that, and we put tens and tens of billions of dollars into the pockets of Putin. I really honestly believe that if Trump had been reelected, you would not have Russian troops and tanks in Ukraine right now. I just don't think, A, he would have been able to afford to do it, and B, he wouldn't have taken on Trump. We have a weakling president. This is a big problem, and as you just said, inflation is rearing its ugly head again. The gas price continues to rise. We're seeing, across the board. Look at mortgages. When Trump left office, do you know what the mortgage rate was when Trump left office?
Oh, it must have been, 3 and change, low threes?
Yeah, around 3. Actually, a little high. It was 2.9.
Wow.
2.9%. And now we've got 8% mortgages. 8%. I mean, think of that. So what does that mean if you want to buy a home? Let's say you're in your 30s or 40s, you want to buy a home. You're now looking at, let's say you're going to buy a median value home, which is about $500,000 now. You're going to pay, your mortgage interest payments are going to be about $1,500 a month more, and you're going to pay over the life of that mortgage $150,000 more for that house. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are so destructive. Biden wants $100 billion in emergency aid for Israel, for Ukraine, for all these other causes. And how about cutting something?
Yeah.
How about instead of just running up our debt by $100 billion, I got an idea. Why don't we take that money out of these crazy green energy programs?
Mm-hmm. What I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that dinner last night with you and Larry Kudlow. I mean, that's that's awesome.
Well, Larry was the best man in my wedding, so he and I were really good friends. And he's been knocking it out of the park. He's got the #1 business TV show on all the networks, and so anyway, I mean, he and I think a lot. I've learned so much from him. And by the way, I'll be on his show today at 4 p.m. on Fox Business News.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyway, I mean, yeah.
So let me ask you then, with what Powell was saying yesterday, do you think that Jerome Powell just is accepting the fact that he's going to have to keep jacking up these rates because the administration cannot push and pursue economic policy that it needs to help him get inflation down? I don't want to be sympathetic to Powell here, but he's kind of got one arm tied behind his back trying to get rid of inflation, does he not?
You don't reduce inflation by raising interest rates. It's the dumbest thing. If I were at the Fed, I'd be, as you know, I was nominated by Trump to be on the Fed, and I didn't make it. But if I had made it through the Senate confirmation, I would be raising holy hell right now. I mean, we've raised interest rates 11 times. How is depressing the economy going to bring inflation down? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We need growth. You said it so well just a minute ago. We need growth policies. We need to expand the output of this country, put Americans back to work, higher wages. You've got tens and tens of thousands of the UAW workers on strike right now. Why are they on strike? Because of Biden and inflation. They can't. Their paychecks are not keeping pace with the amount of inflation, the higher costs. Pete, my wife is always kind of yelling at me. She says, Steve, you have no idea what things cost, because she does our bills in our house. And anyway, so she said, you're going to go to shopping with me this weekend. And we went to the grocery store. My God, I couldn't believe what a pound of ground beef costs. I couldn't believe what eggs cost. I couldn't believe what orange juice cost. My Cocoa Krispies, $8 a box. I mean, God, I can't believe how much everything. So that's why people get angry at me. When they see me on this, at the street corner or something, they'll say, hey, why do you keep saying inflation's only 5%? I said, well, that's, the government number. People don't believe that number, because the inflation that you face for everything you buy every day, things like gas, things like groceries, things like paying your mortgage, utility. I don't know about you, but most people are feeling like inflation is like 10 or 20%, not 4%.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Steve Moore, he was an economic advisor under Donald Trump. He's now a senior economics contributor at FreedomWorks. He'll be on Larry Kudlow's show today on Fox Business, so that'll be a great conversation as well. When you look at...
Yeah, but I told him I could only do a show as long as it did not conflict with Mundo in the morning. So, I cleared the decks for you, my friend.
I'm sure he was very receptive to that as well. So, I mean, you're looking forward here then. I mean, we're going into this election year, of course, next year. It doesn't look like this economy is getting any better. What are you projecting for 2024, Steve Moore? More of the same, maybe a little bit of an uptick or a downturn? I mean, we're kind of waiting for the bottom to fall out, and in fairness, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. In fact, the latest GDP number is estimated to be, 5% for the third quarter, which is a very strong number. So the problem isn't that the economy has not grown. It is growing now. It's that, number one, we're paying people way too much money not to work, right? We're still paying welfare benefits to people that pay as much as working. And that's not fair to the working people in America. The people are working hard, tough jobs at 40 hours a week. The other problem is inflation, as you just mentioned, inflation. Yeah, people have jobs, but, I was joking the other day when the jobs numbers came out on Fox, yeah, they're, what's the old joke? There are a lot of jobs out there and I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
So people are having to work more to make ends meet. And look, it's amazing to me. I've been in this game a long time. For the last year and a half, the polls have been completely consistent. Almost no wavering, no difference between, the MSNBC poll or the Fox poll or the CNN poll or the Gallup poll. They all show the same thing. 70% of Americans believe the economy is headed in the wrong direction, and 70% of Americans think their own personal finances are worse than they were when Trump was president. Those are terrible numbers. And I got to tell you, I believe that Joe Biden is going to be thrown out by the Democrats very soon. Very soon. Latest poll number came out for Biden. Biden's approval rating is right now 37%. That's lower than Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter. So I think they're going to try to turn to somebody else. I hope it's Kamala Harris. I'd love to see Donald Trump run against Kamala Harris, the one who she was in charge of controlling the border.
Yes. Yes.
So a lot can happen, but I think I am working with President Trump again. And it looks like it's very probable he will be the Republican nominee again. And I asked him, just the other day, I said, Mr. President, how long do you think it will take for you to turn things around? Get back, to the kind of strong. And he said, give me 6 months, Steve, 6 months.
Wow. Boy, I could go
so
for some.
Do it. He did it once, right?
Yeah.
Look, I don't care. I know half the people listening to your show probably hate Trump, half love him. I don't care whether you like him or dislike him or don't like. Sometimes I don't like his antics. I get mad at him sometimes myself. But you got to admit, his policies were pretty darn good for the country.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. On the foreign policy front, the economic front. I mean, we got to get these prices back to normal. Most notably for your Cocoa Krispies, there, Steve Moore. I mean, we got to get these things back under control. So
don't tell people I eat Cocoa Krispies for breakfast. That's a little secret.
Sounds like the breakfast of champions to me as he's having dinner with Larry Kudlow. So, Steve, we love having you on. Thanks so much for joining us on KCMO.
Okay. All right. See you soon. Thanks.
You bet. There you go. That is Steve Moore. You heard him there. Talk to President Trump, and going to be back on the team if they move forward, and doing great work now. Freedom Works, writes in the Wall Street Journal, does outstanding work on the economic side of things. Coming up on KCMO, somebody on the Kansas City, Missouri City Council showing his stripes, very much sympathetic to Hamas. Yep, we'll share that with you. Coming up next, Pete Mundo on KCMO, now on FM at 95.7.